You know that feeling when you're deep into a game, only to realize you have absolutely no idea what's going on? Maybe you've missed a crucial piece of dialogue, or perhaps the story is just, well, confusing. I don't know, I just got this idea after I recently played Elden Ring again, and realized I have no clue what's going on. Some games are fairly straightforward: save the princess, defeat the villain, win the day. But then there are those franchises, I'm looking at you, Kingdom Hearts, that take storytelling to a whole new level. With plot twists, timelines, and layers upon layers of lore, these games leave a lot of people scratching their heads. Sometimes even I am. Not every game delivers easy to digest lore though. Sometimes plot details are spread over multiple installments, and consoles making putting together the full story a chore. Occasionally, in the case of Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal, these games have lore that's too complex to adequately explain before it shows up in the main plot, and rely heavily on the gamer reading logs or codexes providing history to the world. Today, in no particular order, I will show off just a few game series that I find the story to be absolutely bonanzas. Some of them have like 20 games in the franchise and their story is not even close to being written. Some games have probably one game in the franchise, but the story is just so complicated I have to turn the game off and come back later to just finish the game. So I guess without wasting any more of your precious time, I guess I'll hop right into the list. Alright, I'm gonna start this list off with the heavy hitter, a series that is as magical as it is mind-boggling: Kingdom Hearts. First off, let me just start off with some fun facts I found interesting while researching this video. Knowing the story of Kingdom Hearts requires owning 5 consoles over 10 years, and you have to import the Japanese special editions of some games. Also, to really know how confusing Kingdom Hearts is, Kingdom Hearts 3 came out a few years ago, but I believe it's probably like the 13th game in the franchise, and that's including all the remixes. Kingdom Hearts is a franchise that is known to take games and basically make like Kingdom Hearts 2.5 remix. Yeah, it's bad. Alright, let's get on with it. So the key confusion points in this series, the blending of Disney worlds with original characters, the concepts of hearts and multiple timelines. The story spans across various games on different platforms, and has crucial plot points often buried inside games. There's also a confusion between like 12 characters in the entire series, like Sora and Roxas. Hey man, at first glance, Kingdom Hearts seems like a simple concept. Disney meets Final Fantasy. How confusing could that be? As it turns out, it is incredibly confusing. The series centers around a boy named Sora, who wields a weapon called the Keyblade, traveling between different worlds, but many of them are based on Disney movies. But here's where it gets tricky. The story dives into concepts like hearts, darkness, light, nobodies, somebodies, and everything in between. And then you have the aforementioned confusion with multiple versions of characters: Sora, Roxas, Ventus, and timelines that crisscross between games, often with, as I said, crucial plot points are hidden in spin-off or mobile games. If you want to understand the story of this franchise, you'd probably have to have a master's degree in, like, having no life. I don't know, it's almost a cliche at this point to lambaste Kingdom Hearts for its complicated story. I mean, the original games were rather basic good versus evil stories. And while that remains true, the details of every installment made the simple premise of visiting Disney worlds more complicated. For instance, there were many installments before the original game, including a phone-based MMO with time travel elements. And let me go more into depth with what I said earlier. There's nothing more indicative of the confusion of the series than the iconic monsters. The Heartless are beings made of a corrupted heart, and their counterparts, the Nobodies, are the bodies they left behind. Both of them were created by scientific experiments gone wrong, until it was revealed that the experiment went right and they were actually naturally occurring. You see, there's just so many retcons and contradictions like this throughout the entire story that just don't pay attention to it, really. I've wanted to play Kingdom Hearts myself, but just looking at the story has actually kind of scared me away from the entire series. I don't think that I want to get into it because I feel like my mind is just going to absolutely melt if I even try to. It's a magical mess. The Nier series, including its predecessor Drakengard, is a masterpiece of storytelling, but it's also one of the most perplexing franchises in all of gaming. Created by Yoko Taro, the games are known for their dark themes, their complex narratives, and an almost obsessive focus on despair and existentialism. The confusion starts with Drakengard, a series set in a bleak fantasy world filled with twisted characters and nightmarish creatures. Look, I just think they're kinda yucky to look at, okay? The final ending of Drakengard leads directly into the world of Nier, where the story spirals into even more complexity. There's even a bizarre mix of sci-fi, fantasy, and some philosophical musings, with multiple endings that can drastically alter the entire story. In Nier Automata, you're introduced to androids fighting an endless war, but the story's true meaning is buried beneath layers of symbolism and metaphors. Multiple playthroughs of the game reveal new perspectives and plot twists, and they force players to basically just rethink everything that they thought they knew about the world and its characters. I mean, it's a story that is as deep as it is confusing, but I think that's what actually makes it more, it keeps people, hooked on it. I think it just makes people want to just know more about it. Nier Automata is well known for having a complex story, even before me saying this, but that's a given for any game that needs to be played twice. In order to experience the full story of the 2017 transhuman epic, the game needs to be completed multiple times for different post-credit reveals. In my opinion as well, I think people need to take into account the original game on the PlayStation 3 as well, which was remade as Nier Replicant, which also had tons of lore that fed into the later game. Between the original and Automata, hundreds of years have passed in the game's world. This actually allows for a pretty rich history in my opinion, and I think it is easy to fill it with plenty of small stories, including an untranslated stage play spin-off to occur in the interim. Also, I think the entire Nier series is lore to the Drakengard series. The plot of the original Nier is set after a bad ending from the original Drakengard, linking it all together and making it one of the more complicated games to dive into. Personally, I'd try and keep up with this game's story at your own risk. It can get pretty confusing at points. I think this transitions nicely into the next game series that we will be talking about on this list, The Legend of Zelda. The Legend of Zelda is one of the most beloved franchises in video game history, but when it comes to the story, it is anything but straightforward. Since it debuted in 1986, the series has taken players on countless adventures across Hyrule, but how these games connect has been a topic of debate for decades. The confusion begins with the timeline, or, should I say, timelines. Yeah, The Legend of Zelda doesn't follow a single chronological path. After the events of Ocarina of Time, the timeline splits into three distinct branches: the adult timeline, the child timeline, and the downfall timeline. Each branch leads to a different series of events, resulting in different versions of Hyrule and stories for Link, Zelda, and Ganon. Not to mention that the same characters in every game are not the same characters from the past games. I mean, that would make sense because, in Wind Waker you're playing as Toon Link, so it doesn't really make sense for him to be the same as, let's say, the Link from Twilight Princess. But the Link from Twilight Princess and the Link from Skyward Sword are not the same Links. And also, Zelda is not the same. The same thing can be said for Ganondorf. Anyways, back to the timelines. For example, the Wind Waker takes place in the adult timeline, where Hyrule was flooded and exists beneath a vast ocean. In the child timeline, Twilight Princess unfolds in a land plagued by dark interlopers. And in the Downfall timeline, created if Link fails to defeat Ganon in Ocarina of Time, you have games like A Link to the Past and The Legend of Zelda NES, where Ganon's power is left unchecked. And then there are the recurring themes and symbols, like the Master Sword, Triforce, and Ganon's various incarnations that link the games together, pun intended, in mysterious ways. Even items, characters, and locations that seem like simple callbacks often have deeper significance within the story, making it feel like a never-ending puzzle for fans to unravel. To make things even more complex, Breath of the Wild seems to incorporate elements from all three timelines, which I'm guessing is suggesting a possible convergence or even a reset to the entire series. So what's the definitive story of Zelda? I mean, it's a giant mystery that keeps evolving, and with each new game, the picture only gets more complicated. The Legend of Zelda is a tale of heroes and villains, light and dark, but figuring out how it all fits together might be the greatest challenge of them all. Not to mention, Tears of the Kingdom throws a giant wrench into this entire equation. Next up is a franchise that mixes stealth gameplay with a storyline so intricate it's practically a conspiracy in itself. It's a franchise that I find a way to squeeze into basically every video on this channel. My favorite franchise ever made, Metal Gear Solid. Created by Hideo Kojima, this series is known for its blend of political intrigue, science fiction, and complex character relationships. The story spans decades, with plot points that jump back and forth through time. At its core, Metal Gear Solid is about soldiers, clones, and the manipulation of information, but it's also about much more. The concept of patriots, AI systems controlling the world, and the ever-present threat of nuclear weapons create a narrative web that is extremely hard to untangle. The relationship between Solid Snake and Big Boss and the various incarnations of these characters is central to the confusion. There's not one snake. There's like 5 of them, with multiple snakes and the overarching question of who the real villain is. The story challenges players to keep up with its twists and turns. And just when you think you figured it out, another twist hits you. Metal Gear was doomed to have a confusing plot from the start. The original duology was only released, it was on an obscure Japanese PC at first, and then the English release changed the first one substantially, and it ignored the second one. When people picked up the first Solid title, they had no idea what they were getting into. The sequel to Metal Gear Solid would be, despite its die-hard fans, which is me, extremely confusing. A prequel followed that told the story of the franchise's biggest villain, except that his backstory and future appearances often contradicted his actions. Even when I've tried to connect it all, it still really confuses me a lot of times. I think Metal Gear Solid 2 is just creepy in a way because it talks at the end of the game about AI and information being suppressed in the world, and it literally hammers home what is happening in the world today. And if you don't know, Metal Gear Solid 2 was created in 2001. That is insane! And that'll do it for this video, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. I know it took forever for me to upload. It's been probably close to a month now since my last video. I'm sorry about the upload schedule. I know it's really bad right now, but I'm in high school. There's a lot of stuff coming up, so give me a break, please. But yeah, I didn't want this video to be too long, but there were plenty of other games that I wanted to talk about in this video. So if you guys want to see a part 2, be sure to let me know down below, and also leave a like on this video as well. Let me know what else you want to see on the channel, and that would be greatly appreciated for all your feedback. And also, please subscribe. It's the least you could do. I mean, you watch one of my videos, so you're already making a young boy happy. So if you mind hitting that subscribe button, that'd be great too. Apart from that, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye.